Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MedTech Impact Podcast, where you get to hear from leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of medical technology. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Nickeljohn.
And we're your hosts of the show.
So, on today's episode of the MedTech Impact Podcast, we are delighted to be joined by Eva van Rikxoort, CEO and founder from Thirona. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we are delighted to catch up with you. I know you're currently sitting in the Netherlands talking to us. And so it's super exciting to be able to connect on the platform here and to be, of course, able to share the Thirona mission. Whenever we start these conversations, we do like to frame it by kicking things off by sharing the problem that Thirona is looking to solve. So please tell us.
So Thirona is a company that makes software for pulmonologists. And the problem we're trying to solve here is that pulmonologists in their daily practice have to do very complicated things to help each patient correctly. And that problem we can really alleviate with AI, making sure doctors know what to do and have time for their patients instead of just planning for treatments.
And so tell us a little bit more about the types of problems they're encountering.
Yeah, so for example, nowadays we are very good at early detection of probable lung cancer, right? So that's really good. We can screen for lung cancer, but doctors are faced with, there's something really small in the lung and I need to go there with a bronchoscope and I need like a Google Maps that tells me left, right. Am I really there? Am I really hitting my target? So we are really making this kind of Google Maps, for example, where we help them target the smallest things we want to hit nowadays.
And in terms, you mentioned obviously you're targeting the lungs, all lung diseases.
Yes, we are aiming to do all lung diseases because we also think it's very important. You have lung cancer, you have COPD, things that are relatively common, but you also, for example, have children with cystic fibrosis that also really need the best treatment. So we are, in the end, aiming to do every lung disease, rare or common.
So pretty comprehensive, Kyle, bringing that digital edge to the care place, which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that we're kind of seeing and hearing a lot of. And now here's Thirona. And this is really interesting, Eva. Could you tell us now a bit more about your technology and solution and how exactly it works?
How exactly? Well, we have a few hours. More in general, so what we do is, so if you have a lung disease, you usually get a scan. And very often it's a CT scan where you can really see your lung in detail. And we make software that analyzes this scan before a doctor sees it. So we find everything that's in there, the lungs, obviously, because that's where we want to go. But you have vessels in there, you have airways providing air to your lung, and any type of disease. So we really make software that maps out every millimeter of your lung, can show this to a doctor and can point at what's wrong, but also can, for example, point at which treatment, if that's the question, which treatment would be most eligible or questions like that.
And it sounds like that there might be an opportunity for the doctor too to be able to help identify the disease and diagnose a lot sooner in the process.
Yeah, indeed. There are several steps in the process of the patient where this could help. So one is you get a scan and determine what is actually the abdominitis you have or how diseased are you, and that could help a doctor also get to a certain diagnosis faster. And then once you're diagnosed, of course, there are also lots of decisions to make on which medication would you be eligible for. Is it actually working? Nowadays, it's often try and error, right? You give someone a medication and you see if it works. And that could even take a year of not having the right medicine. So you could also really speed up getting the right treatment at the right time.
Cool. And it sounds like there's an element maybe of like AI and machine learning. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's not only an element. So everything we do is machine learning, actually deep learning based. So we learn from the data. When we started 10 years ago, it was really machine learning in the old way. But now it's all deep learning. A lot of data, but also you have to do it smartly. You cannot just throw in a lot of scans and get the answer. So it's a combination of manpower and deep learning.
Well, it makes a lot of sense too, because I mean, these doctors are trying to, provide the best diagnosis, right, possible, as soon as possible. And, the data is so critical to making that diagnosis and detecting the disease. So obviously the data needs to be good. Now, what about like an indication here when you're bringing your technology to market? Because typically there's, an element of like, well, we're going to come to market with like this capability first, and then we're going to grow and expand, because we realize sometimes, that data takes a long time to compile and gather and analyze, and you need the more patience, right, over time, the better. So are there certain indications that you're going to look for as your product enters the market and then grows?
Yeah, so we originally started always in the COPD field where treatments came out and we really started there. And currently we are expanding the product portfolio to lung cancer, but then not the lung cancer screening part where you really find potential lung cancer, but really the part where once a nodule that's a potential lung cancer has been found, what do you do? Because that's where you're really looking at things that are millimeters and very precise and that are all new and flooding pulmonologists at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. And I know, Richard, when we talk about now pulmonary and that specific market, it's always fascinating what that strategy, looks like.
Oh yeah, totally, Kyle. So I mean, I love the fact that you're bringing this visualization, you're bringing this extra layer of data to the care professionals to really enhance the service, to really help them connect and inform the patients and make better decisions. What does that look like, though, in terms of integrating with that standard of care? How are you, because I know we often hear about interoperability being a challenge, how are you layering in this technology?
That's actually a very good question because it's one we've struggled with in the past. And we decided at some point, we ourselves are not selling directly to every single hospital because then you need indeed to integrate in every workflow. So we're actually a company that partners with companies that integrate. And in our case, it's usually either treatment companies that are selling the treatments and that have an interface to the site, or for example, imaging companies, robotics companies, those kind of companies that bring things onto the market that already have a software interface, and we like to call ourselves the motor, or the Intel inside of those things.
Nice, that's smart. I love it. I love that partnership model where you're really integrating the best of your two different business models and leveraging that support network. I'm sure you've been developing this in hand with care professionals. What's that feedback been like from them so far?
Yeah, so the feedback, so it's often in the hospitals, can we have it now? Or lately we're hearing, you're sitting on a bag of gold. We just sometimes need to find out what it is. So they really, if you look at, they want to help their patient best as possible, and they get faced with a lot of new treatment opportunities that they want to give to the right patients. So it's really, we really know that this is the future. And it is about finding the right channels to get it in, because they also can't have a doctor having to go to a different computer for every single thing they do. That's not feasible.
Kyle, I think that's so true what Eva said there. This truly is the future. These types of visualizations, this types of embedded AI, really enhancing the care experience for the patient, for the care professional. We're seeing a lot of growth, as you mentioned, in software as a medical device, going down that regulatory pathway.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no. And it's really fascinating to me too, because, as someone who works in, for example, the endoscope space, and you think about all these endoscope technologies that are coming to market and how many millions of those types of procedures are performed every year. You think about all the OEMs out there that are producing these technologies, and how well, Thirona's software might be able to even complement those types of products in the field and help doctors achieve greater outcomes with their patients. So super exciting stuff. Love it. But yes, tell us a little bit about, Eva, the regulatory path here when you have this software, and like, how are you going about, bringing this to market ultimately?
Yeah, so the regulatory pathway is, of course, very important. I think if you look at software as a medical device in pulmonology, we are also relatively lucky. So we've been able with the FDA, for example, to do another 510K, because we're really aiming at aiding something else. So we usually are able to prove relatively well that it works because we have a real use case. We're not just making something faster, for example. We're really in a use case. So clearing our software worldwide is a very big staple. And the other thing I think is very important, also once it's already cleared, validation. Also for your end users, validate that for each use case that you want to do, it really brings that value that you're aiming at. Because sometimes you think of something, but technically we can make many things, but not all of them have the same clinical impact that you would hope beforehand.
And what about that, that validation process sounds intriguing to me. How do you go about the validation?
Yeah, so that's all about what we call our key opinion leaders. So those physicians that are really in the field doing this. So what we do is indeed we go to them, we work together because we try to advance the field together, listen to their use cases, offer them to use the software next to it, for example, and really have them experience it and then in the end validate what is the clinical difference if you use it versus if you don't use it. And that's how we really build our proof and also show the world what we can do, because we have to speak through their mouths, right, in the end.
Totally. That's super fascinating. And it just, you make it like sound so simple, and you did a great job at explaining that, which our audience is sure to love. That's for sure. Especially like with all, super technical, types of technologies like this, technical technologies like that. So that's really fascinating. Now, are you getting any feedback too from original equipment manufacturers that obviously, utilize or make these imaging devices today?
Yeah, so we actually work with several manufacturers, because business to business is what we do. So yes, actually we get feedback and they want to work with us. We sometimes get feedback like, this is the future, but we are not there. So that's always really difficult for us. Like, yeah, we know we should go there, but we are not there. But yeah, we see more and more traction there. It's really, I think at the moment in this medtech space, we are going from, AI is maybe interesting to, we are starting to realize that without it, we can't do many things. So it's a nice to have to need to have transformation that we're going through.
Yeah, that's makes a lot of sense, Eva. And Richard, as Eva, you heard, she's now starting to hit on some challenges, right? And I mean, those are, undoubtedly going to present themselves at times, and it's always fascinating.
Absolutely right. I mean, I guess, you touched on a little bit, Eva, that getting this into market is maybe a little bit complicated, and you have an education process in translating that value proposition and integrating into the care place. So can you talk a little bit more about the value proposition? Is this something where you're fitting into a standard reimbursement, or what is that business model for Thirona?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So one of the biggest ways how we get into the market is actually working in the clinical trial space. So we are not doing our own clinical trials, but in all those new treatments that are being developed, we are part of that trial. So for example, patients are selected based on our software, or the planning of where do you go with this bronchoscope, or how do you dose this treatment is all done with our software. So in the end, when these things hit the market, it is clear that to hit the market, you need, well, preferably ours, but at least AI software to do this. So that's one of our paths to market. It takes a little bit longer, but it's very well founded. And it's also, if you do that in enough of these trials, it's really clear that the doctors don't know how to do it without. So that's our most important way to market. And that's where you also meet the other players in the field.
So a challenge, but not insurmountable, and something you've obviously found a solution and way around. And in terms of, again, being in the Netherlands and taking a solution like this into the US market, how's that been as a challenge in terms of connecting and finding the right people to help you along this journey?
That is a good question. I actually think COVID helped us there a little bit, which is maybe not great, but of course, everything became a little bit more digital. So there's always the possibility to do things like this, Zoom, Teams, and we always fly back and forth a lot. I'm in the US almost every month. But nowadays, it's also more common because people in US also often work remote, even well in the same company, right? So it has become a little bit easier. You have to work in your evenings, but that's fine. So that, I think, it is easier, but in the end, you have to be on the ground often. You have to see, you work with people also because you trust them and you maybe even like them. So I think it's very important that you meet each other a lot.
Yeah, no, that's so true, Kyle. I think in terms of, getting out and building relationships and meeting people in person, it's clear that while there are challenges, Eva's knocking them back out the park. She's finding solutions and she's making it happen. And so I imagine, you've got a really good runway ahead of you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I know that is absolutely remarkable. And Eva, you are such a pro too at like working with all of these different partners and resources here in the United States, and you make such valuable points. So now we're looking here at kind of the future, right? We're looking at the next, say, 6 to 18 months. What are some big milestones that you're hoping to achieve?
Yeah, so 6 to 18 in our world is not super long, right?
No.
I think that the most important milestone for us at the moment, and that's a little bit technical, but we made a new product that really you can do AI like on a scan that was taken and the patient come back safely. We made a product that is now live. So you're in the operating room and you're imaging to see what you're doing, and that product immediately gives you help. Where am I? Where do I go? And for us, this is the product that now all the milestones that we make, the new milestones are about this. We want to market this product because we and our key opinion leaders believe that this is a huge game changer. So that's our biggest challenge.
Okay, well, where are you then in the process of, maybe submitting and filing for the approvals needed to go to market with that new technology?
So there's actually something funny about that product. So we have already built our product that we do on a normal CT scan you take beforehand in the same way that this product is built. So yes, we do need like an update of our method, but it doesn't have to be a completely new submission. So it's also always a strategy. How do you do this? But at the moment, it looks like we can do it relatively fast. And now we are applying it like in a research setting. But we hope that our strategy works, and because it's actually the same product underwater.
What about, so then do you already have an approval on part of your technology today?
Part, yes. Okay. Our whole system on normal CTs is already approved, and this is like an extension of it.
Perfect. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And what about any additional, I know that we maybe lightly touched on it, but what about funding?
Yes. So if you look at Thirona, because we have a business model, business to business, for the first 7 years of the company, actually, we did it ourselves. So we had customers who wanted things, clinical trials. But nowadays we have 2 VCs on board, because if you want to do things like open a new market, go through intraoperative imaging, we couldn't fund that ourselves and we really need a boost. So nowadays we have our own income and we have VCs to help us break open new markets, let's say. And also it goes really fast at the moment. So we have to be in front, otherwise we lose.
No doubt. That makes a lot of sense. And Richard, I think about, the teams that these founders need to build along the way and how important that is.
Yeah, and it's exactly true again, Kyle. I think something Eva mentioned before was around how this is a journey, and even 6 to 18 months is a short part of that journey, because clearly you've been doing this for a number of years, and of course you were going to continue doing this going forward. So yeah, it's really interesting that you've managed to build up a huge team, multi-skilled, very diverse. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the team who are involved in making this all possible?
Yeah, of course. The team is most important in the whole journey, I think. So actually, we started with only engineers. All the original engineers are still with the company. So we built a company that was built around software engineers, deep learning engineers. And then we started expanding. Actually, also when we got the VCs, we said we need commercial teams. We've always had our own QARA, but nowadays it's like 10% of the company, because it's so important to clear and register your devices. And we were able to expand the management team, for example, with a good chief financial officer who really helps in also strategically thinking how these things work. We have a new CTO who comes from a larger company, but who really has a different way of thinking than we do as scientists becoming entrepreneurs. So the team is really, it now has like this whole range of people. That also helps us to look a little bit differently than in the beginning when we were engineers saying, this is what we make. Period. That is what we did. And now we say, this is what we are, and this is how we help you. So it's really been a huge change over the last few years.
And again, with the AI element, how have you found accessing the right talent, finding the right people to bring into your team?
Yeah, for some reason, I think we are lucky, and also, because we have like a mission that really speaks to people, finding deep learning engineers for us, it is not difficult. So yes, we have a lot of trouble, like others, finding, for example, software engineers who make the interfaces, the interface that connect with others, those things. They are also needed in every single industry. But I think deep learning engineers, finding them for us, they are so, they're so attracted by our mission and by the impact they can make. there we have a really solid team that's very loyal. So it's really lucky because it's really the core of what we do.
Yeah, I think anyone can buy into this mission of what you're doing. It's so important, the number of patients that this can be helpful. And of course, I'm sure you learned a lot along the way, Kyle, in terms of all this journey and everything you experienced building a company.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking. Eva, what we love to do is kind of reflect back because, I mean, you've been at it for 10 years, maybe even longer, right? So obviously you're experiencing so much along the way. Maybe you could share, a couple tips with us from your learnings and advice that you would like to share with, any of the audience who might be looking to develop a technology or a device and bring it to market.
Yeah, of course. I think lots of lessons, but some of the ones that I find really important that you don't hear a lot is, for example, ask for help. And the thing is, all these key opinion leaders that work with us, they work with us, of course, because we're very good, but also because you have to have the guts when you start something and later on and you're stuck to ask for help, because people are really happy to help if they like your mission, but they need to know that you need help. So I think that's what the most important thing I learned is, team. Build a team that's complementary and that really likes to work at what you're doing, because everyone has to feel this mission. But then also around your team is another shell of people that are, ask for it. People are, and if they're not, they will say no and nothing happens. Or they will say no, but I know someone who can help you. So that for me has been really crucial in building this.
Yeah, Eva, that's great. And I think, that can't be said enough. I think everyone every day in their jobs need to realize that it's okay to ask for help and that they should be asking for help. It's how you make progress, I think, and make sure you're on the right track. And so, and especially the team aspect, you've really did a great job at driving that home. And you're right, it is so incredibly important. And that's what makes companies. So, I think that's fantastic. And Richard, obviously, the vision behind these leaders is always something that, is really intriguing to me, right? Especially over these long periods of time.
Yeah, I think this all fits together in terms of, building a team, having a clear vision, motivating that team. Before we go on to that, I just wanted to dig a little bit deeper because you are a scientist, that's your background. So I wondered how you found that transition from scientist to entrepreneur, and some of your learnings from that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was indeed a scientist for maybe 10 years, just not before I started the company. But I do think as a scientist, I was already very much focused on translation. So I was always, when I was writing my papers, already working with doctors, translating it. I was actually working on lung cancer screening in my science career, for example. But I think a big learning that I had to do is, as a scientist, you're trained to see the what ifs, the but ifs, all the problems. And a big thing I had to learn is that yes, but also the user sometimes it's good enough when it's in my mind 80%. It's not, but it's already solving their question and doesn't have to be 5 steps further. That's a technology push instead of an answer to the question. So I think that is, you have to learn to listen to the user instead of listen to your what's the best technology I can use. I think that's a change I had to make, and some people in the company, and we're also teaching them that change because we hire a lot of scientists. But that's a difference in thinking. But I actually think scientists can make great entrepreneurs. That's
totally. Yeah, and proof in point, you're doing it. You're there making it all happen. And again, back to that vision part, you're clearly laying out a great vision for your team, and of course for investors. They want to know what's coming up and what the bigger picture is for Thirona. So tell us a little bit more about where you see the company, say, in 5 years' time.
Yeah. So I think, as I said, we are in this nice to have to need to have transition. And what I really feel, it's also the part of the pulmonology we are in. I really believe that AI on its own can do things, efficiency, other things. But if you couple everything we can do now in hardware, for example, or treatments with AI, that is where 1 + 1 is 500. So that's really the direction I believe in, that we need partnership as a core. And if no one is playing this field alone. So if you really partner there, we are making so much more value together. So that's that's how I see the future.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, Kyle. I mean, this collaborative model, to me, is the future. And again, what you're saying there, I think when you start to create this partnership model where you get that synergy and you truly add value on multiple fields, again, for the patient, for the care professional, really improving that whole experience and the outcomes, it's so powerful. So again, this is super exciting to hear all this, Kyle.
Oh, absolutely. And especially again, going back to even my personal experiences here working in the contract manufacturing side of the business and seeing a lot of these imaging based technologies coming to market. You're also seeing a lot of these big strategics looking for exactly Thirona's type of technology to complement their technologies and provide, again, better outcomes for their doctors and patients. So it's going to be really exciting to kind of see what happens with you, Eva, and Thirona over the next 5 years. And we're wishing you the very best of luck. Now, there are also many people out there that want to join you on your mission, on your journey, maybe find ways to help you along the way. Or maybe there's a big strategic out there listening right now, one with an endoscope technology that would love Thirona's technology. So how do they get in touch with you?
Yes, that would be great. So the easiest way to get in touch with us is our website or email. And the funny thing about our email address, because when we started, we thought it's also a plus that we're in the EU, which I still think it is. So email is always, for example, info@thirona.eu. And .com will not come to us.
Perfect. Good to know. We'll make sure we emphasize that one in the write up, in the recap. So that's great. So super. Thank you, Eva.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. And I guess as we round out, if you have that call to action and if there's an ideal partner, who would be that perfect group that you'd love to hear from at this stage?
So at this stage, I would say any imaging vendor, anyone who's indeed in the bronchoscopy world. Yes, we're always very happy to work with everyone. And we, as I said, partnering, we can make so much more value together.
Well, you've heard it here. Thirona, Thirona.eu. If you are one of those, then we recommend you get in touch and you collaborate and you make it happen. Thank you so much for joining us, Eva. This has been absolutely wonderful to share and to learn more about what you're doing.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Perfect. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, another huge thank you to Eva at Thirona. We appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the MedTech Impact Podcast. I'm Kyle Cruz.
And I'm Richard Winkeljohn. Until next time, keep innovating.